Chair, we're now live.
Thank you very much. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Plans Committee for Charnwood Borough Council. There are a number of things I would like to remind people of before we start with the items on the agenda. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the recording will be made available on the Council's website following the meeting. Under the Openness of Local Government Bodies regulations, people may film or record this meeting, and this is outside the Council's control. However, people wishing to film or record the meeting should do so in a way that does not disrupt the business of the meeting. Also, so that the meeting is not disturbed, could I ask everyone present to please turn off your mobile phones or switch them to silent and ensure that your environment is distraction-free. And can I remind everybody that this is a public meeting, so please conduct yourselves in an appropriate manner. Thank you. As this is a virtual meeting, it will run slightly differently. Members will need to introduce themselves and state their name and confirm that they can see and hear the proceedings. This is important for the purposes of recording attendance and transparency of the meeting. I will do this by undertaking an alphabetical roll call. Members will use the raise hand feature in the participant section of the Zoom software if they wish to speak, and will be allowed to do so in a queue system. Voting will be undertaken by roll call of all present in alphabetical order. Each member will state their name and how they wish to vote: for, against, or abstain. Speakers will be called forward at the appropriate time by myself, the chair, and their microphone will be unmuted by the co-host. Speakers have 5 minutes each, and they will be timed by the co-host. When you have 1 minute time remaining, you will be advised. The co-host will mute you at the end of your 5 minutes. If there are any technical problems with outside speakers presenting, then I will read out, or the host or one of the officers will, the speaker's statement which has been sent in advance of the meeting. I'm now going to call out the names of each member of the committee in alphabetical order to confirm their attendance. And it will be Councillors Bentley.
Hello, Chair. It's Councillor Bentley here. I can both see and hear you.
Councillor Campsell.
Councillor Campsell, I can both see and hear the proceedings.
Councillor Capleton. Councillor Capleton, you're still muted, I believe.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, John Capleton here. I confirm that I can see and hear proceedings.
You. Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I confirm that I can both see and hear proceedings.
Councillor Forrest.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I confirm that I can both see and hear the proceedings.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. I confirm I can both see and hear the proceedings.
Councillor Lowe isn't with us yet. He will be joining us later. Councillor Ranson.
Thank you, Chair. I can both hear and see the proceedings.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. I can both hear and see the proceedings.
Councillor Tassell.
I can both see and hear the proceedings.
Councillor Tillotson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I can see and hear proceedings.
And Councillor Ward.
Yes, Chair, I can see and hear the proceedings.
Thank you. And I'm Councillor Hilary Fry, and I'm the chair of this committee. I will also now verbally confirm the officers in attendance. Jacqueline Jackson, Group Leader, Development Management. Karen Brightman, Team Leader, Development Management. Deborah Liggins, Senior Planning Officer, Catherine Harrison, our legal advisor to the committee, Sherry Grant, who is the locum solicitor. I don't think that's right. Is it Louise? I'll wait for one of the officers to confirm.
Sorry, Chair. I'll confirm. Sherry Grant isn't in attendance this week. She was this month. She was at the last committee, but not this one.
Thank you. And Karen Widdowson, who's Democratic Services Manager and co-host for the meeting. Ed Brown, who's Democratic Services Officer, taking the minutes for this meeting and sharing PowerPoint slides. And Sally Watson is undertaking the live stream. Could I ask one of the officers, please? And Louise Winson, who is the Principal Planning Officer. I don't believe Mr. Richard Bennett is with us this evening. Thank you very much. So if I could ask the co-host, Karen Widdowson, to confirm the speakers are in the public gallery, please.
Thank you, Chair. So we've application number 1, item number 1, we've got Helen Jarvis, we have Councillor Robert Shields, we have Councillor Boker, and then for the item number 2, we have Caroline Thornborough from Corn Parish Council and Councillor Jane Hunt. I am awaiting one attendee, one speaker on item number 2, which is Derek Gunningham, and I will keep an eye on him in the virtual waiting room. Thank you.
So those are the only outside speakers we have tonight. Thank you very much. Apologies. Have we received any apologies?
No apologies received, Chair, other than Councillor Lowe, who stated he may be late joining the meeting.
Thank you very much. The minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 28th of January, could I ask the committee to confirm this as a correct record of the minutes? And I will now call out each committee member in alphabetical order to respond. Councillor Bentley.
For, Chair.
Councillor Camsell.
For, Chair.
Councillor Capleton.
For, Chair.
Councillor Charles.
For, Chair.
Councillor Forrest.
For, Madam Chair, thank you.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. For.
Councillor Ransom.
For, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Savage.
For, Chair.
Councillor Tassell.
For, Chair.
Councillor Tillotson.
Thank you, Chair. For.
And Councillor Ward.
For, Chair.
You and I also agreed to the minutes. And I confirm that the minutes are correct. Them have been confirmed, and I will sign them, and they will be returned to the officers in due course. We have the item 3 on the agenda is questions under committee procedure 12.8, and I don't believe we've received any questions. Could that be confirmed, please?
No questions received, Chair. I can confirm that no questions.
And I do note that Councillor Lowe seems to have been able to join us. Welcome, Councillor Lowe. Disclosure, item 4, disclosure of pecuniary and personal interest. Are there any disclosures of interest, please?
None have been received, Chair.
Are there any disclosures of interest that people wish to make that haven't previously been notified? No, thank you. Item 5, we're now moving on to the planning applications. At today's meeting, we have 3 applications to consider. Their details are set out in the agenda and the extras report, which I trust everybody has read and understood. Karen Brightman is going to open this item, application number P/202322/2 at Land of Melton Road in the Wolds. Now, this will be explained by the officers, but we will not be going into discussion about the application in detail because of the recommendations by the officers. Right, so we'll now move on to Karen Brightman, please.
Chair, I've just noticed that Karen Brightman has just left the room, the meeting, unfortunately. She must not be having technical problems.
Can Jacqueline Jackson or one of the other officers take over, please, at this moment? Jacqueline Jackson will take over at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I bring members' attention, please, to the extras report that was circulated yesterday? Members will see that there has been a few extra comments received, including extra comments from local residents, the parish council and CPRE. The other aspect that is in the extras report is it's been brought to the local planning authority's attention that the press notice was not published, and this means the statutory consultation duty has not been fulfilled, and for this reason a side note, a press advert was published yesterday, but this requires a 21-day consultation period. It is essential that the consultation is carried out in accordance with the general planning development procedure order, and that responses received as a result of this are duly considered. And for that reason, officers' recommendation has been amended from that set out in the main report to that of defer, to allow not only the late comments to be fully considered, but any new comments as a result of the press advert to be duly considered and the planning considerations re-looked at. So that is our change to our recommendation, Chair. Thank you.
Chair, I'd like to propose deferment in line with officer recommendation.
I would second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we've got it proposed that we accept the officer's recommendation by Councillor Ian Bentley, and it's seconded by Councillor Mark Lowe. So I will now ask the committee for how they wish to vote on this. So it will be, I'll call a name vote, and it's for, against or abstain. It is to defer this application as explained by the officers. So Councillor Campsell.
Councillor Campsell for.
Sorry, Councillor Capleton.
For, Chair.
Councillor Charles.
For the deferment, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Forrest.
For deferment, Chair.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair, for the deferment.
And I'm presuming Councillor Lowe.
Yes, for the deferment, Chair.
Councillor Savage.
For, Chair.
Councillor Tassell.
For, Chair.
Councillor Tillotson.
Thank you, Chair. For.
Councillor Ward.
For, Chair.
And back to Councillor Bentley.
For, Chair.
Thank you. And I also am.
Chair, you haven't included myself.
Oh, sorry, and Councillor Ransom.
Thank you for the deferment. Thank you.
Everybody else being counted for? Thank you. And I also am for the officer's recommendation. So thank you very much for that. And we move on now to application number P20 1803/2 for at 102 Station Road, Quorn. And nobody has declared an interest for this, so I'll now move to the officer to put forward the application, the presentation. Deborah Liggins.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Just wait for the presentation to appear. Right. This item relates to application P20/1803 for Mansfield Lodge, 102 Station Road, Quorn, which is before you tonight at the request of Councillor Shepherd and Councillor Hunt, who have concerns about highway safety and the loss of trees. The proposal relates to the change of use of an existing two-storey outbuilding, referred to in the application as the barn, and the erection of a new double garage to the rear, which would be accessed off Disraeli Street. Next slide, please. The left image shows the application site area with Mansfield House, the larger dwelling situated to the north, with the two-storey barn currently used as an ancillary residential annex to the south of the site within the red line area. The image to the right shows the boundary of the conservation area, and you can see that a rectangle of garden land to the west, and where the proposed garage is to be erected, is land lying outside of the conservation area. There are no trees within that rectangular area that have statutory protection from being removed. Since the publication of the agenda, the agent to the application has confirmed that the two trees shown on the submitted plan to be removed, which we'll see later on, are not present on the site, as explained in your extras report, and an updated site layout plan was received on Tuesday this week. Next slide, please. This is an aerial photograph of the application site, and you can see the existing house and barn opposite the junction of Stoop Lane and Disraeli Street, passing to the south of the site. Next slide, please. And these are photos of the site. The top left one shows the existing house and the two-storey brick barn and the existing vehicular access onto Station Road. The top middle one shows the barn, and you can just see the attached double garage behind the wall. It's proposed that the building would retain the use of this vehicular access onto Station Road. The top right photo shows Disraeli Street, which is a private road and which is also used for parking for adjacent dwellings. You can just make out the southern boundary wall of the application site. The bottom left photo shows the existing vehicular access onto Disraeli Street, which is proposed to be unaltered and behind which a double garage is to be erected. The centre bottom photo shows the existing grassy garden area where the garage is to be built. Shrubs and trees around the boundary of the site are to be retained. The last picture is the rear elevation of the barn, which is to be changed to the separate dwelling. Next slide, please. Here we have the existing and proposed site layout plan. This shows how the property would be divided with a new boundary fence separating the garden areas, and also shows the position of the double garage with additional parking and turning space provided in front of it. This plan does show two trees to be removed, but this is now superseded, as I previously explained, and these slides were put together before the receipt of the revised drawing on Tuesday this week. So the revised plan just shows two trees to, well, it doesn't show two trees as is existing within the garage area. Next slide, please. These are the proposed elevations of the garage. This would be 5 metres high to the ridge and would have a footprint of 7.4 metres by 6.4 metres, with an additional pitched roof store just to the side. The garage would be finished with cedar cladding and would have a tiled roof to match the roof of the existing two-storey barn. Next slide, please. This shows the floor plan and section of the garage. 2 parking spaces are achieved within the building with the storage element separately accessed to the side. Next slide, thank you. This shows the existing floor plan of the barn, which hopefully you can see has the double garage, a kitchen lounge and WC to the ground floor. And at first floor, there are 2 connecting rooms and a shower room. As I said, no alterations internally or externally are proposed to be made to the building. Next slide, please. So the key considerations in the determination of this application are listed. The principle of the development. The site is located within the Quorn limits to development, and Quorn is identified within policy CS1 of the core strategy as a service centre and a good location for new housing development because of its range of services and facilities. The site with a bus stop immediately outside is considered also to be sustainable in transport terms. Policy CS3 supports the delivery of new housing in such locations and seeks an appropriate mix of housing. Policies S1 and H5 of the Quorn Neighbourhood Plan also support new housing within limits to development and small residential development proposals where schemes are well designed, where they retain natural boundaries and which do not reduce garden land to the extent that local character or residential amenity would be adversely affected. No alterations are to be made to the barn, and no protected natural boundaries are lost in the creation of the reasonably sized and separate garden areas. And it's therefore considered that the development accords with policies as set out in the officer report, and that the development is acceptable in principle. In terms of housing mix, policy H3 of the neighbourhood plan sets out that new housing development should provide a mix of houses specifically to meet the needs of the people of Quorn, and the policy supports the provision of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom dwellings. The proposed dwelling has 2 bedrooms, and accordingly it's considered that its design and layout would accord with the policy and also CS3 of the core strategy. Design and impact on street scene and the conservation area. No listed buildings are affected by the proposal, but number 102 and the existing barn are located within the Quorn conservation area, and the part of the site where the new garage is proposed is outside of it. No changes are being made to the barn, and its current appearance within the street scene and conservation area would therefore remain as existing. The proposed garage is of a design and finish which are considered appropriate for the area, and its siting and appearance wouldn't harm the significance or setting of the conservation area. And a planning condition is recommended to secure a specification for the proposed timber cladding as set out in the condition on your report. So in summary, it's considered the proposal wouldn't be visually incongruous or prominent in the street scenes of either Disraeli Street or Station Road, and the proposal would accord with policy CS2, CS14, EV1 and the adopted SPD on design. Highway considerations. Disraeli Street is an unmade road which doesn't accord with modern highway standards. No alterations are proposed to be made to the existing gated access you saw on the photographs, which is to be retained for use by number 102 Station Road. This access may, however, become more intensively used as a result of the properties becoming separately occupied, and objectors to the scheme have referred to the attendant highway dangers caused by that. The local highway authority doesn't object to the proposal, acknowledging though that there may be small increases in the use of the access. It's considered that traffic speeds on Disraeli Street would remain low, and the use of the access in connection with the garage would be acceptable in highway safety terms, and would have also avoid highway harm, severe harm to the highway network. The quantum of available parking within the site to serve both dwellings is also considered to be acceptable, and the proposal accords with the National Planning Policy Framework and Policy TR18 in that regard. In terms of flooding, the site falls wholly within flood zone 2, which is an area at medium risk of flooding. The barn is an existing structure with no ground floor sleeping accommodation, and the garage is considered to be minor development, which is acceptable in this flood risk category. The officer report sets out that the proposed separately occupied dwelling has the potential to increase activity within an area of flood risk, but in a small way, given the current residential uses of both buildings. Floor levels within the barn are already set above maximum flood levels, and the levels in the proposed garage are also set above those levels, and the Environment Agency doesn't object. So in these ways, the scheme accords with the flood risk considerations set out in Policy CS 16 and the relevant provisions of the National Planning Policy Framework. Amenity impacts, these are set out in the officer report with no internal or external alterations proposed to the barn. It's considered that its separate occupation and continued use of the access to Station Road wouldn't cause harm to current residential amenities of the surrounding properties. The proposed garage is also of a design and position whereby losses of light, privacy and outlook would be avoided. So it's concluded the proposal would accord with Policy CS2 and EV1, the adopted SPD on design and Policy S2 of the Quorn Neighbourhood Plan. Other matters have been raised by several respondents to the application concerned about the legal ownership and rights concerning Disraeli Street and its use. However, these are private matters and don't affect the planning considerations of the proposal. So to conclude, the proposal provides a new home within the limits to development which conforms to Policy CS1 in terms of the growth pattern planned for the borough. It performs an economic role in terms of modestly contributing towards the council's 5-year housing supply, providing a separate dwelling to the occupancy of Mansfield Lodge, and which also complies with the relevant policies of the Quorn Neighbourhood Plan. Socially, it links well to the village and is a sustainable location. The garage proposed is of an acceptable design and siting and wouldn't harm the amenities of neighbouring occupiers, the appearance of the street scene, and the development is also acceptable in highway safety terms. And it's concluded the development would not harm the significance of the adjacent conservation area or its setting as a heritage asset. So it's considered the proposal would not lead to significant or demonstrable harms and would accord with the policies and guidance set out in your agenda report. And it's therefore recommended that planning permission is granted with the correction to the drawing number set out in condition 2 to reflect the revised plan received on the 23rd of February 2021. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We're going back to one of us. There we are. Thank you very much indeed. Now we have 3 speakers, I believe. Has Mr. Gunningham arrived? No, not at the moment. So we'll go straight on then to Carolyn Thornborough, who is a parish councillor and speaking on behalf of Quorn Parish Council.
Thank you very much, Chair.
If I could just explain, you have 5 minutes and it'll be indicated to you when you have 1 minute left.
Thank you. Okay, your time starts now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Yes, thank you. Right. So I'm the chair of the Quorn Parish Council, and the Planning Committee recently reviewed the application you've just talked about. Our concerns really are chiefly about road safety, particularly Disraeli Street, where it opens out onto the junction with Station Road and Stoop Lane. As the photographs showed quite clearly, I thought, it's a very narrow road. It's also actually a footpath as well. It's heavily used for parking, as the photographs again showed quite clearly, There's cars parked there both night and day. And they park at an angle, so in fact it actually reduces the width of the road quite considerably. So the road's already very, very congested. Disraeli Street opens out onto Station Road as a bend, and it's very, very hard to see when you're coming out of Disraeli Street what traffic is coming. Buses also pull up alongside that junction. So again, that's traffic and it's hard to see what's going on. Our concerns relate to if extra cars are allowed, we feel it will actually just lead to more congestion and more traffic problems and will lead to road safety issues and pedestrian safety issues. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. I'll now move on to the second speaker we have tonight, which is Councillor Jane Hunt. Again, is Councillor Hunt there? Councillor Hunt?
She's in. Oh, she's coming in now.
Hello there. Can you hear me? You can't hear me. I apologise. My apologies. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I speak this evening on behalf of myself and Councillor Richard Shepherd, the ward councillors for Corner Mount Sorrel Castle. We called this application in before the Plans Committee on the grounds of highway safety and loss of trees for your consideration. Referring to the officer's report for this evening, I note that the report comments that the application will create 2 parking spaces or a turning circle, not both the required number of parking spaces and a turning circle. While a turning circle would not normally be required for a property, it is the case that the unadopted Disraeli Street is very often full with parked cars. Having lived in the village since 1995, and for the first 3 of those years in Mansfield Avenue, just around the corner from Disraeli Street, I have noted that there are occasions when cars reverse out of Disraeli Street and onto the public highway, as there is nowhere for them to turn round. It could well be the case that cars coming from this property will have to reverse for the length of Disraeli Street before reversing onto the public highway also. When travelling out onto Station Road, the report also notes that it is a 90-degree junction. Members of the committee will also have noted that there are walls on either side of the junction abutting the highway. Upon exit to the left of the highway, to the left of it is a high wall of the property referred to in this application. Station Road is a one-way road, so looking to the left is perhaps less important to view oncoming traffic. However, this footpath is one of the main thoroughfares for pedestrians through the village, not only serving the immediate houses and public house, but also the 2 main footpaths on Mansfield Street and Station Road, which are heavily used through to the other residential parts of the village and onto the route to Barrow. To the right, there is a shorter wall, but it does have a stone topper that may be in the eye line of drivers looking for oncoming traffic to the right. This is, of course, in addition to the residents who use the pathway to and from Nursery Lane onto Disraeli Street itself. Policy H17 talks of granting planning permission provided the development meets certain criteria. I would ask the meeting to consider that the application could be seen as detrimental to the occupiers of nearby properties. As already described, Disraeli Street is often full of parked cars already. There are a series of terraced houses nearby, and there are double yellow lines directly outside the front of those properties. I, along with Councillor Shepherd and others, have been working on a plan for car parking in the village for some time now, based on feedback we had received from a large part of the village who found it very difficult to park near to the shops. Our progress has been documented on several occasions in the village magazine, The Quorndon. Any impediment to these cars parking on Disraeli Street will cause overflow parking on Station Road possibly, and the village car park, which we have found by carrying out an extensive parking survey is often full. In addition to this point, I have been contacted in the past about difficulties with visibility at the Mansfield Street junction on Station Road. Additional parking on Station Road would only exacerbate this issue. In conclusion, I would suggest that it is not the case that this application creates a neutral balance on traffic flows from Disraeli Street. While there are gates already in place, they are rarely used, as I understand, and that the current household parks on the front of Station Road. This will be an independent dwelling, and therefore this will be the source of parking for that dwelling, and consequently will be used much more frequently. I would ask that the committee considers these points. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hunt. Now, I'm not sure you presented it. Karen, do you want to come, Deborah, do you want to come back on any of those points at the moment? There is just...
Yes, thank you.
I would just like to sort of clarify. I understand at the moment that the dwelling that's going to be made in an independent dwelling is already a dwelling that's attached sort of informally to the house. So it's already could have people living in it at the moment. And also there is also already an access onto both Disraeli Street and station and the other road. So there are two entrances. Each dwelling will have its own entrance. Is that how I understand it? So did you want to come back on anything, Deborah? And then I will move it on to the committee for questions.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, just to clarify, the existing Mansfield Lodge property would use the existing access off Disraeli Street, and the garage would belong to that property. The barn to be converted is already in residential use as ancillary annex accommodation to the main house, and would benefit from the existing access onto Station Road, which is again to remain unaltered. Whilst it is acknowledged that there might be problems with the junction of Station Road and Disraeli Street as a result of its age and non-conformity to modern visibility highway standards, it's not for the development to really solve all existing problems in terms of visibility and parking, but to just ensure that the new development caters and provides for its own needs and doesn't worsen or exacerbate those problems. So we've seen from the drawings that the proposed garage would provide the required 2 car parking spaces for the Mansfield Lodge house. Any space in front of that would be additional to highway requirements. Some might be used for parking, some occasionally might be used for turning. And that the existing barn has its own double garage and forecourt parking. So it's not considered that additional or significant traffic journeys would be made to and from the site that couldn't already be made using those existing accesses.
Thank you very much. I have 2 speakers at the moment indicated. Councillor Ranson.
Good evening, Chair. Thank you very much. I am slightly concerned myself because I am a pedestrian and do go from Barra to Quorn on this pathway. But relevant to that, on page 50, the actual highway authority are referred to the authority standing advice in relation to the access. They're a little bit unsure of whether it should be, but because of the situation where it is, and it's already been used slightly for vehicular access, they have granted permission. Now, if the committee are reminded to grant permission on this item, I would like to put in another condition, and Jacqueline will actually possibly, or one of the officers will tell me I either can do it or not, restrict it if on actual hours of working because of the situation of where it is, so that, you know, no, either 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock in midweek, and on weekends, possibly just Saturday mornings. Am I allowed to do that, Jacqueline?
Are you talking about the construction of the garage, or are you talking about the use of the driveway?
No, construction of the garage. And if the committee will, if the committee is minded to actually pass this application,
I mean, that's for members to consider. I think you need to remember really 2 things. One, why we're doing that, what the harm is. I mean, during construction, it's really deliveries that are going to be causing your problem there. It's not the actual building work. So limiting the whole construction could be seen as potentially overzealous, and we'd have to question whether that was reasonable. The other thing to consider is the pandemic advice. So we have been asked to be more lenient with construction hours to allow different tradesmen to be there at separate times to allow for social distancing. So again, that's something at the moment that members do have to keep in their mind.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Tassell?
Well, as it's not going to alter the street scene at all, the building's not going to be altered. It's already a residence. I don't feel that we can go against this. And so therefore, I would like to propose that we go with officers' recommendations with the amendments that Councillor Ranson has requested, that we just look at the working hours of the building of the garage.
Thank you. So that's on the table at the moment. Councillor Ward?
Thank you, Chair. Having looked at the sort of list of concerns that are outlined in the papers and listened to the concerns that the speakers have given us today, I tend to agree with Councillor Tassell that unfortunately the problems are already there, and as has already been said by one of the officers, it's not really the developer's responsibility to resolve those pre-existing problems. And I don't, as the property already has been converted, and that access could potentially already be used, I don't really see how we can refuse. The one thing I did want to mention is that there was a concern about the fact that the road hasn't been adopted, and it's a shame the dispute over the ownership wasn't resolved before it was brought in front of the planning committee. But would it be possible to put a condition on about any potential damage that's done to the road being remedied if damage is done to the road in the construction process? Thank you.
I have Jacqueline Jackson to come back on that. The road is unadopted because it's a private road. Jacqueline will explain it further.
Yeah.
I think it's quite a small, comparatively speaking. We're not talking about building a house. We're talking about building a garage. So, Jacqueline Jackson, you wanted to come back in.
Yeah, it was actually about a different point, but I will answer that question as soon as I'm here. We can't condition that. It's a private legal matter, and planning doesn't override private legal matters, and private legal matters don't overrule planning. What we can do is we can highlight the responsibilities as an informative if members wanted to just highlight that, but it would be a private matter that we couldn't control through the condition. The other thing that I just wanted to come back on was this working hours. I mean, I did provide some advice. I think it does need to be debated by members a little bit more deeply. I have concerns about members controlling all activity when it comes to the construction for the reasons I've set out. I think that if you do go down the line of restricting anything, you really need to think about what it is that you're particularly worried about. And if it's deliveries of materials, then that's a matter that we can look at potentially controlling. But I think it wouldn't be reasonable and it wouldn't meet the test if you limited all construction into set hours.
Deborah Liggins, you wanted to come back?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was just to say that on the draft decision notice on page 53 of your agenda, there's an item for the applicant's attention to say that the grant of planning permission doesn't alter the private legal situation with regard to carrying out works involving land which he doesn't own. So although the dispute continues about the ownership, it's up to the applicant to ensure that they're satisfied about the ownership position. And like Jackie said, it doesn't override the planning considerations and the grant of permission.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. Listening to these and listening to the officer's response on the hours, I certainly think that we should maybe look again at that and just go to restricting the delivery hours rather than the construction work hours. Thank
you. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to second Councillor Tassel's to approve this application. I can see nothing wrong with it whatsoever, actually. So I'd like to just second the application, the officer's recommendation. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Now then we just need to discuss or agree on the clarification of the fact that is it delivery hours, which we may be able to put in a condition, for example, 8 till 3 or something, but not, or is it whole construction? Because we are talking about a garage, albeit a double garage, but it is attached to an existing building and most of the other works are internal. So if I could just maybe go back to Councillor Ransom to see what.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy. I know the area, as some of us do that live around the area. I would be happy for some sort of a condition, particularly because of noise and you know, and pollution and things like that, because it is quite an occupied area as well of houses. And as they said, according to the, if you look at the aerial photograph of the cars parked, it would actually need the actual access is quite around near Disraeli Street is quite narrow. So yes, I'm happy to actually refer to just for delivery hours, if that is what the committee are minded to do. Thank you.
And do you have a suggestion of the delivery hours you would suggest that the committee can look at, please?
I would actually suggest, you know, hours mainly not too early in the morning, 8 till 3, as you suggested yourself, Chair. And weekends, maybe just on a Saturday morning, just for delivery, you know, up to midday or something like that. I know it's only a garage that's been converted, but it is quite an intense and a dense area there, you know. And I know the road hasn't been adopted, but you know, I'm just thinking of the local residents and pedestrians, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jacqueline Jackson, and then I'll go to.
Okay, I was just going to help with some wording based on that. So I think we need to make it clear that it's delivery for construction material. So that needs to be part of the wording. In terms of the hours, I think 8 in the morning is reasonable. I don't see there any reason why it would be 3. I think 5 would be better in the evening, and then obviously Saturdays as well, with none on Sundays and none on bank holidays. I think that's where you need to go if members are minded to.
Yes, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm happy with that, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Tassell, you proposed acceptance subject to the 1 or 2 conditions. Is this agreeable to you?
Yes, it is. It's very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Savage.
I'm agreeable to it, Chair, and quite happy with the recommendations extra.
Thank you. I have no further hand showing. Jacqueline, did you want to come back in? Jacqueline Jackson, your hand is still up.
I don't, but Catherine, our legal advisor, does.
Right, Catherine Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering on the wording of the condition, just being we're moving towards amending proposition, whether we want to delegate authority to planning officers to formulate the final wording based on what we've discussed.
I think that
I don't think it was quite in a finished form.
We usually do ask the officers to put what our wishes are into the correct format, and I'm quite happy to delegate that, and I think everybody else would be. So I have no further speakers at the moment. Oh, Jacqueline Jackson.
Yeah, it just cropped up in my head. Just to clarify with Councillor Ward, through you, Chair, if she was
Yeah.
happy with the existing informative that was in the officer's report, or whether she would like if that met her requirement.
Thank you, Jacqueline. It's quite vague. It doesn't mention specifically any reparative works to the road. So, I mean, if you could word something informative about that, then I would be happy with that. I understand that it can't be a condition.
Yeah, we can add something that talks about the responsibility of meeting any damage, you know, that's a private matter as well. I can't go as far as saying you've got to repair it, because obviously that's stepping in outside our role, but I will put something in about damage and that being a private matter.
Absolutely, thank you.
If Councillor Tassell agrees, obviously, as proposer.
Yes, I agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Savage is the seconder.
I agree with that, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, I have no further speakers. We have a proposer, Councillor Tassell, a seconder, Councillor Savage, with the couple of conditions that we mentioned. So therefore, I will now go to the vote. And I'm going to call you all out in alphabetical name, and I would like you to just say how you wish to vote. And therefore, I start with Councillor Bentley.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Camsell.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Capleton.
Chair, I'm for the proposal.
Councillor Charles.
For, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Forrest.
For, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. For.
Councillor Lowe.
I'm for, Chair.
Councillor Ransom.
I'm for, Chair, with the extra conditions.
Councillor Savage.
For, Chair.
Councillor Tassell.
For, Chair, with the amendments. Thank you.
Councillor Tillotson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm for.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
For, Chair.
Thank you. And I am also for, so I make that unanimous. So I'd like to ask if this could be confirmed by the legal by Catherine Harrison, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. That's a unanimous vote in favour of the proposition, which was to follow officers' recommendations as set out in the main report and the extras report, with an amendment to condition 2 for the revised plan, and further amendment delegated to planning officers to amend the informative and also the condition about deliveries to the site.
Thank you very much. Right, we now move on to planning application number 3, which is, I would just like to thank Councillor Hunt and Councillor Thornborough for their comments. I see they're still on the attendees.
Yeah, we've got a technical problem in that I can't move them back into the attendee list. So I can remove them, but I don't know if they want to just completely go.
I am going to go. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. And I think Councillor Thornborough has left as well. Thank you. Right, item 3, planning application number 3, which is P20 2306 for 6 Elms Drive, Quorn. And we have no declarations of interest, so we go back to Deborah Liggins to present the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just wait for the slides.
Sorry, it's just loading up.
Thank you.
Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So, as Councillor Fry has said, we're staying in Quorn for this next item, 6 Elms Drive, Quorn, application P20 2306. The application is referred to Plans Committee in accordance with the Council scheme of delegation. So the proposal relates to 1.5 and 2-storey extensions to the side and rear, respectively, of this detached house, the widening of its vehicular accesses and the formation of a patio to the rear and hard surfacing to the property frontage. Next slide, please. This shows the location of the site, which is on the southwestern side of Elms Drive, which meets the junction of Chaveney Road to the south. The area is residential in character with an eclectic mixture of house types and uses of materials. Next slide, please. This is an aerial photo of the site's location. To the north, you can see the L-shaped bungalow, which is 8 Elms Drive, with the rear gardens of Craddock Drive dwellings having a boundary with the application site. To the south is number 4A Elms Drive, which is a gabled bungalow. Next slide, please. These photographs on the top row show the existing detached house, which has 2 driveways and an existing hard surfaced area behind the front boundary wall. The existing tree you can see there is proposed to be retained, but the access is slightly widened and the area resurfaced with new block paving. The bottom photos show the existing rear elevation with the properties either side. Next slide, please. This slide shows the existing and proposed site layouts. You can see the 2-storey extensions on the north and the 1.5-storey side extension on the south of the dwelling, and the alterations to create a patio area with steps down to the lawn at the back of the property. You can also see the proposed parking layout to the front of the house, with the existing garage to the south being retained and the tree also indicated there to be staying. Next slide, please. This slide shows the existing and proposed front end and one of the side elevations. You can see the proposed 1.5-storey extension to the southern side of the building, which incorporates the existing garage and the removal of the existing carport from the northern opposite side of the house. The remainder of the front elevation would stay as existing. To the bottom of the slide are the existing and proposed side elevations facing number 8 Elms Drive, which was that L-shaped bungalow to the north, and the proposed 2-storey extension to the rear of the property. You can see the existing carport also removed from that side elevation, and the proposed 2-storey extension is to be constructed in contrasting render and cladding material. This is a revised plan which proposed the elimination of a first floor window in the extension, to which the neighbour had objected. So this plan shows that window now removed, and a planning condition also seeks to secure the actual details of the cladding finish and its colour, because they're not finally agreed yet. Next slide, please. This slide shows the existing and proposed rear and other side elevation. You can see the introduction of the new 2-storey rear glazed gable feature with the Juliet balcony with the glazed balustrade, and the 1.5-storey extension on the southern side of the house with the hipped roof sloping away from the bungalow at number 4A. In the side elevation, you can see the new extension has a Velux roof light to serve the new ensuite facilities, and new first floor bathroom window is also inserted in the side elevation of the existing house wall. Next slide, please. This shows the existing and proposed ground floor plan. To the left side, you can see the existing garage and workshop is incorporated within the new 1.5-storey extension, and the garage is brought forward slightly to include a new ground floor WC as well. The existing utility room is lost within the new 2-storey rear extension, which would span across the whole elevation with that new gable that we just talked about projecting slightly beyond on the right hand side. Next slide, please. Ooh, I don't know if you can see the whole of that first floor layout. So this is the existing and proposed first floor plan with the ensuite facilities provided within that roof area, extension over the garage. First floor bedrooms are enlarged with accommodation reconfigured to provide for the new ensuite facilities, a dressing room and a new family bathroom. Next slide, please. So the key considerations in the determination of the application are listed here. The design and impact on street scene, with the exception of the new 1.5-storey extension and the removal of the carport, the front elevation would retain its current appearance. The side extension would be set down from the roof height of the main house and set back from the front elevation, and would remain subordinate in appearance to the main house, with a hipped roof sloping away from number 4A. This would be in accordance with the adopted design guidance. The use of matching materials to the main house would also ensure the extension wasn't incongruous in the street scene. The external alterations to the property frontage and the renewal of the hard surfaced area would also enhance the appearance of the dwelling within the street, and the widening of the access points wouldn't be visually harmful to the overall character of the area. So the design, scale and appearance of the proposal would complement the existing building, and it's considered it would be in keeping with the varied residential character of Elms Drive, and the design and scale are considered to be acceptable and not visually harmful. So in these ways, the proposal would accord with policies CS2 and EV1 and the adopted supplementary planning document on design. So in terms of the impact on residential amenities, the existing dwelling has 2 first floor small bedroom windows in the northern elevation astride the chimney breast, as we saw on the drawings. And these already offer the potential to overlook, to a small degree, the roof and garden of the neighbouring property at 8 Elms Drive. As we saw, the revised plan received on the 27th of January removed that previously proposed first floor window within the new extension, and with it the potential for additional overlook into that neighbouring property, and it's considered that this overcomes the concerns of the neighbour. The southern extension involves a hipped roof which slopes away from the blank flanking elevation of number 4A, and there are no principal overlooking windows which would affect the amenities of the occupier of that dwelling. The scheme accords with the 45-degree angle of light rule, and because of the position of the house in relation to those either side, the proposal wouldn't cause significant losses of daylight or sunlight. So the revised proposal is considered to be acceptable in terms of preserving the amenities and particularly the light, privacy and outlook of the neighbouring occupiers in accordance with policies CS2 and EV1 and the adopted SPD on design. Car parking. Members will be familiar with the NPPF, which requires a safe and suitable access to serve new development, and that planning permission should only be refused on highway grounds if development would result in unacceptable severe highway impact to highway safety or the existing road network. The householder development is subject to the standing advice of the local highway authority relating to access geometry and the quantum of car parking provided. It's considered that the widening of the access points would improve their ease of use, and that the amount of parking provided within the scheme would be sufficient to meet the needs of the extended dwelling. So it's considered that the proposal would accord with the provisions of the NPPF and policy TR18. So to conclude, the proposal is considered to accord with the relevant development plan policies and national planning guidance as set out in the officer report. It's not considered that the proposal would result in material harm to residential amenity or highway safety, and there are no other matters raised which provide justifiable grounds for refusing the application. So it's therefore recommended planning permission is granted, subject to the conditions set out in the officer report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we have no speakers, external speakers to this application. So I'll open it up to us. Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. Listening to the report, look at the plans, etc., and the fact there's been no objections on this, I can't really see any reasons to refuse. So I want to recommend officers' approval.
So are you proposing the officers?
I'm proposing officers' proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Savage.
I'd like to second Councillor Grimley's proposal to accept the officer's recommendation. I think it's a really nice extension to a already nice house.
Thank you. I see no further hands up, so I will go to the vote. Right, Councillor Bentley.
For, Chair.
Councillor Campbell.
For, Chair.
Councillor Capleton.
For, Chair.
Councillor Charles.
For, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Forrest.
For, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. For.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. I'm for.
Councillor Ransom.
Thank you, Chair. I'm for.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. For.
Councillor Tassell.
For, Chair.
Councillor Tillotson.
Thank you, Chair. For.
Councillor Ward.
For, Chair.
Thank you very much, and I'm for also. So I make that unanimous. Could that be confirmed, please, by our legal advisor, Catherine Harrison?
Yes, thank you, Chair. That was a unanimous vote in favour of the proposition, which was to grant planning permission for the reasons and conditions set out in the officer's report.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, we are moving on to our final item, which is item 6, which is a list of applications that have been determined under delegated powers, pages 62 to 72 in your agenda pack. If anybody has any comments they'd like to make, would you please raise your hand? Any comments or questions? No? Okay. Right. I'd like to close the meeting, and as I said earlier, if you could just hang on for a couple of minutes. But our next meeting is on the 25th of March. Usual place, usual time. Thank you very much indeed. And also I'd just like to remind you all that next Thursday evening we get together again, hopefully, as it's one of our quarterly planning training evenings commencing at 6 o'clock. But thank you very much for your attendance tonight and for your attention. So I think we'll just